Welcome everyone, it is I, Lee. And I know what you're thinking, Lee, your hair's changed. Why is your hair changed? It looks so much better before. Well, that's where you're wrong, everybody. My hair looks amazing before. It was great. Do you know how many girls I had when I got hair like that? I got none. I got no girls at all. But that was 2020, back when women famously did not have taste. But it's 2022 now, and women once again have taste, and this hair is gonna pull. Today I want to talk to you about time travel in anime. Time travel is a form of storytelling. I think it's hard to do just because you can mess it up in so many ways. You can create paradoxes like, why didn't you just do this instead of that? Stuff like, okay, but if this worked in this timeline, wouldn't it not work because you guys went back and changed stuff? Like, I feel like time travel, it's a mess to deal with. And the more complicated time travel is, usually the easier it is to mess up and make plot holes. But I want to focus specifically on time travel, not like in the West or in live action, but like how they do it in anime. The reason why I want to do just anime is because, well, I'm basically an anime channel, but also there's a little bit of similarity across anime. And I think it's interesting how they tackle time travel. There's a lot that's the same, there's a little things that are different. I want to get into all of it. The first one I talk about is classic time travel stories. You know, stories like Steins Gate, ReZero, Erased. These stories are basically, I have a problem, so I need to go back in time and change the past so I can fix it. I can understand why this is popular just because of the premise. This pizza guy who's like in his late 20s, failed at making manga. His mother gets murdered and everyone thinks it's him. So like he finds out he has the ability to go back in time. So now he wants to catch this murderer because it's probably the same guy who did the string of murders when he was a kid. But the way how they use time travel I think is a bit questionable. The rules for Satoru's time travel, they're just not existent. He was really stressed when it happened in the present and then he traveled back in the past. Then he failed at preventing at least one of these murders, so he just traveled back to the present. And the pops are still after him, so he's like, what's he just do? Okay, let me just travel back in the past further than that and solve it. And I feel like it's still a decent anime, but I feel like it was good that it was short because there wasn't much rules keeping it interesting. Because I mean, obviously, time travel is only one aspect of it. It's also like, are the characters good? Is the story good? And you know, the characters are nice, but the story was decent. Like the way the mystery was unraveling wasn't that interested, but as far as the time travel goes, it was fine. But the other type of classic time travel story we have is more like the time loop, like the ReZero and Steins Gate. Yeah, Steins Gate is about a lot of things, but you know, the main premise is, you know, this college student and his friends kind of figure out they can send texts back in time. However, when they're about to go public with their work, one of his friends gets shot in the chest. Her name is Mayuri, by the way. I remember watching this with my friend for the first time and see that when everyone comes in and they shoot Mayuri in the chest, and I was like, because it's a time travel story, anyone who's dead isn't really dead. They're just dead till they go back in time and save them. So I wasn't really impressed, but then the next episode, when he kept trying to rewind time and save her, she kept dying and dying and dying because her death was an absolute point in time. So the main character pretty much forces himself in this time loop, and he's not gonna give up until he changes the fate and saves this girl. I think he was in that time for like hundreds, if not thousands of times, which is just months, if not years of him just trying to save his friend. Steins Gate also had some like alternate timelines because we found out that every time when they were testing this time travel, this is what led to Mayuri's death because he was changing time itself. It's a similar thing with ReZero with Subaru, who's kind of stuck in these time loops. Like he rather needs to live past a certain point in time, or he needs to change something to like make sure like progresses, or he's kind of stuck in this loop. And you kind of see like this is like, it's mentally like tearing on the main character, having to relive the same day over and over again, trying to save people who keep dying. And it's tough, but I think it's interesting. I feel like the stories have different ways about how you kind of get past this kind of time loop thing. The difference between Erased and Steins Gate is that Mayuri's death was an absolute point in time. It didn't matter what Okabe tried to do, she would die regardless because she was destined to die. However, in Erased, no one was actually destined to die. He just wasn't able to outsmart the murderer or even just figure out how to save his friend. So it's a bit different there. And I realize stories where someone is destined to die, you have to do like a number of different things to actually make sure that destiny changes. In Steins Gate, they figured out the reason why she was dying was because Okabe was changing the past before this. So he has to go back essentially and change the past that he was already changing to make sure Mayuri stays alive. During these time loops, he falls in love with Kurisu, this girl who actually was originally dead in the main timeline, but he was messing with time and inadvertently saved her life. So now he has to decide, oh, am I gonna save Mayuri, my best friend slash love sister, or like Kurisu, the woman I love? And it's interesting because you kind of get to see the effects that even just small time travel can have on your life. Because I feel like a lot of stories, they focus on the premise of, oh, time travel can solve all my world problems. And then you realize time travel could actually make more problems than anything. It's like the best classic time travel story. There's rules to time travel, so it's interesting, and they go about it in different ways. And still having some kind of commentary on what time travel does to your life and how it could, well, essentially negatively affect it. And just to clarify, I tried looking up names for a lot of this, but like, I'm making this up, so I'm gonna call in this category slice of life time travel anime. And I want to start it with The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. To me, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is interesting because, you know, the first half of the movie, it's so different and far removed from like any other time travel story I saw at that time. It's pretty much about this girl who like finds this little machine and realizes, oh, she can like infinitely like leap through time. Like she jumps off like a high place or something like that and she'll like travel back in time. And the first half of the movie is cool because what she does with this information, because she doesn't want to grow up, she doesn't want to say goodbye to her friends. She's just kind of like reliving life, you know, messing with her friends a little bit, saving herself from these embarrassing situations, and she's just kind of having fun with it because, you know, she's got infinite loops. However, things get complicated when, I'm sure a lot of females know this pain, when like their guy friend confesses to them and she just wants to avoid that timeline because if he confesses to her, things will change and she doesn't want things to change. So she keeps rewinding time, trying to essentially stop him for even getting the chance to confess, maybe getting with someone else. And like, as she's doing this, she's kind of realizing no matter what opportunity presents itself and what she tries to change the timeline to, she doesn't like the end result. So she realizes, damn, time travel is not helping me here. She also realizes in some situations where she saves herself from embarrassment, she embarrasses other people, which causes more problems with her down the line. Like, it's just supposed to be simple stuff of like, oh, I just want to make this right or change this, and it's falling apart. And I really did like that commentary that, you know, time travel does not solve all my problems. The second half of the movie is still good, but it changes up on the premise a little bit now, because we find out she doesn't have infinite loops. She has a finite amount of loops, and now the idea that somebody could die is now up there. So now she's the infinite loops, she's got to save somebody's life, which is like very similar to a lot of time travel stories, but I'm not mad at that. The reason why I was like so interested in that first half was because all time travel shows, not even just anime, just shows are always like, okay, I need to change the past to fix this problem or save somebody's life or da-da-da-da-da. And with her, just like, I'm a kid, I like fucking around. And I thought that was really unique. But now there's another anime. This one is like actually a proper slice of life anime. It was called Iraduku, The World in Colors. And Iraduku stood out to me because, you know, it's a slice of life anime, which like, I'm not the biggest fan of, self-admittedly, but I finished this to the end. And it's about this girl who's like 70 years in the future and they're like year 2070 or something like that. And she's depressed and she's kind of like, she's becoming colorblind because of it. I don't get how that works, but whatever. And what happens is her grandmother realizes this and sends her back in time so that her grandmother could hang out with her when she was a teenager. But to me, what was weird about this was that the time travel aspect didn't need to be. The reason why she was able to time travel was because of magic. Apparently magic is in this world, the main character uses magic, but like, it's not like that crazy fancy isekai magic. It's more so like magic is politics. It's not like a secret from the general public. Like, it was so weird to me, like she went back in time, presented herself to like her old family, her great-great-grandmother and all this stuff, and it's like, I'm your great-great-granddaughter from the past, and they're like, boy, that's just crazy. Well, come on in, we got a spare room for you. And it's weird, like she keeps it hidden that she's from the past from her friends in this past, but when they find out, it's not even that crazy, and I feel like it was still a decent slice of life anime. Like, I like this anime, but like the actual idea of them using time travel, it doesn't really work just because nothing is important about this being the past. Like, the future didn't change in any crazy way. I think it was just her grandmother being like, well, actually, when I was younger, you came back, so I knew I sent you to the past because that version of me sent you to the past in the past, which is what I'm doing, which is she used to do before, and she just, fuck it. Or maybe it's just because she know, I think my friends would be able to help you in the past. And I felt like that's cool, but in my opinion, she could have just gone to like a different city and like with relatives and stuff. I know what you're thinking, oh, in this world, does she have relatives? Probably not, but it's just like, as a writer, I kind of struggle as to why you send her to the past, because I don't think anything about the past made the show really interesting. This anime could have just been about her spending a year at her cousin's school in like Okinawa or something, and then, living the same life. So I feel like as a time travel story, this doesn't do too much. It was probably like the eye catcher that, oh, about this girl goes back in time and a slice of life, which is nothing wrong with it, but I just feel like it was a little weak. But it's still interesting. One of the more unique time travel stories for sure. Now we're on to the third group of anime. I like to call them time travel stories. Okay, now we're on to the third group of anime. I like to call them advanced time travel stories. I want to talk about Tokyo Revengers and Linked Click. Tokyo Revengers is about a 26-year-old man named Takamichi who can travel back in time 12 years in the present. His first girlfriend died as a result of gang violence, and when he learns that he can go back in time, he vows to save her. The only catch is that he can only move exactly 12 years back and forth. I feel like this is good because this eliminates a lot of what's complicated about time travel. Because time travel, you worry about like time paradoxes and plot holes and all this stuff. But like in this one, because he can only go exactly this way, he has to gather clues in the present, essentially, go back to the past and try and solve it. And what's interesting about Tokyo Revengers is, when he joins this gang, he realizes, these gang guys, they're in a gang, they're nice people. and he's trying to figure out what corrupts the gang exactly and why his girlfriend died. So he's constantly like going in the past, trying to solve some things, coming to the present, the girlfriend is still dead, and he's not sure why no matter what he does, he keeps dying. But it's interesting because instead of like most time travel stories where like you tackle one problem and you go to infinitely until it works out, with Tokyo Revengers, it's like a new problem every arc. Like he'll try and solve something in this arc, if it's solved, a new problem will arise and he has to deal with that. So he's constantly doing different things, and this lets the story go as long as it really needs to go. I can tell the author's not that great a writer just because they touch on like what happens to Takemichi like when he's in the past, and it seems he still has consciousness, but they don't say is he connected to this new one. I don't know. It's a bit complicated what Takemichi does when he's in the future, when his past self just knows that he leaps and all this stuff. But apart from that, I think it's really cool. I like the premise a lot. And now we can move on to the other one, which is Linked Click. Linked Click is by far the most unique anime we're gonna be talking about today. Not even just anime, even as far as time travel stories I've seen in like movies and TV shows, I've never seen anything like it. Linked Click is about two bros who work at a photography shop who have the ability to go back in time through photos. What makes Linked Click stand out is that there's no attempt to change the past. The rules are more complicated than anything we've touched so far, so let's get through them. Do you want to get through all this shit? You need to know all this shit? You might need to know all this shit. See, Lugang has the ability to see what happens 12 hours in the life of the person that took that photo. So if you take a photo, physically hand it to him, he can look at it through your perspective to see everything you've kind of seen throughout that time. And sometimes they can solve cases like this, but mainly that's not enough. That's where Changshu comes in. Because Changshu actually has the ability to travel into the photo, but they're only able to do this via, like, hand clap or something like that, and he can travel through the photo and he can live in that body of the person for the next 12 hours from the moment they took that photo to the 12 hours after. But basically they can change the past as long as the end result stays the same. Like, I don't know, like let's say someone was gonna die but they robbed this person before they die. It's like it doesn't matter because he's gonna die anyway, so his life never mattered. That was a dark example. Before it was almost like they spent an episode, maybe 2 episodes dealing with a client, going through all these photos, and they can also only go through a photo once. If Changshu fails at being able to find something when he's in a photo, they can't use that photo ever again. It's a one-time thing. So, these rules give a lot of tension because, anytime they go in the photo, they have one chance, one opportunity to do this. They can't change the future, but they need to get information that is going to help them in the present. And it's a little bit complicated, but I feel like having these strict rules make it very easy because, there's no, time loops, no time paradoxes, more so you're just trying to, but yeah, they go back in the past, they kind of do what they want as long as they don't change how reality is going to end up. So just kind of change very minor things. What's interesting about this show is that it's not just a matter of Changshu going back and being in this person's body. It's like he feels their emotions and their feelings. So constantly, Lugang will try and tell him, you need to stick to the script, do everything right, don't change anything. It's like, yo, fuck that shit, bro. My mom's gonna die. My mom's gonna die because he's in this person's body. And I think it's cool how they'll clash from time to time about not changing the past and how it's so frustrating for Changshu just because he has to live with these people and experience all their pain. And it's usually really miserable shit. I feel like the show fell apart a bit because in the latter half of the show, they start to deal with this murderer subplot. It wasn't bad, but the thing is, we find out that he was able to time travel into the body of a person and no photo was involved. And season 2 has been announced, so I'm not sure how they're gonna deal with that premise of oh, this murderer can time travel as well to other people's consciousness, because I feel like it can get pretty complicated. It was already getting kind of complicated for me when in one of the later episodes, Changshu was talking about how I think we already time traveled to make plans with this guy to come to this location. So I think we have to rerun that event again because we already did it in the past. I'm like, when I watched that part a second time, it made sense, but that kind of thing scares me because even though there's a lot of rules, it actually makes the story a lot more simplistic in how you do the time travel. But if you keep adding more and more rules and different ways to affect time, I feel like you can make your story fall apart. I think the simplicity in the fact that they're not ever trying to change time is interesting, but I feel like they need to explain a bit more why. Because Lugang seems to be the one explaining to Changshu how they time travel. In the very last episode, it seemed like he was shocked, wow, is he gonna be able to change the time? But we don't know if these are rules or just guidelines and how the story's gonna change. So I definitely say Link, most unique anime, not necessarily the best anime we've talked about on this list, but I feel like it's definitely worth a mention because I don't know, it's just interesting to see how they did time travel. Okay, now that we've covered everything, let's talk about what we've learned. But I'm honestly struggling together to put a thesis statement to this because the first one's gonna be the problem with anime time travel, but anime time travel is pretty chill. I feel like there's no time paradoxes really for the most part. So I do like time travel in anime a lot. I just wish I watched more anime for this video. So if you've seen any other time travel anime you thought would be cool or I'd be interested in, yeah, maybe I'll watch some more. I'll make another anime time travel part 2 video, just let me know. it was really cool talking about time travel with you guys. So if you guys liked the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys the next time. I'm LeeTSimba. Peace out.